You've seen the moments. You've heard the commentators screaming in disbelief. You've probably even argued about them for years. But what if the most shocking parts of these legendary matches weren't in the script at all? What if the real drama, the real-life betrayals, and the explosive backstage politics were way more intense than anything we saw in the ring? Today, we're pulling back the curtain to find those moments where the line between scripted entertainment and shocking reality didn't just blur, it completely vanished. The stories you're about to hear might just change the way you see professional wrestling forever. We're about to pull back that curtain, but before we do, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell. That way, you'll never miss out when we expose the stories the WWE doesn't want you to know. The Montreal Screwjob. The betrayal that changed everything. When you talk about wrestling controversy, there's really only one place to start. November 9th, 1997. Survivor Series, live from Montreal. The main event, Bret the Hitman Hart, the reigning WWF champion and a Canadian national hero, against his bitter real-life rival, Shawn Michaels. The energy in the building was electric, but backstage, it was toxic. The story on TV was about a championship, but behind the scenes, it was about loyalty, betrayal, and a company on the financial brink. By 1997, the Monday Night Wars were in full swing, and the WWF was losing. Vince McMahon, who had signed Bret Hart to a massive 20-year contract just a year earlier, suddenly found himself unable to afford it. He told Bret he'd have to breach their agreement and encouraged him to take a big-money deal with rival promotion. WCW Hart signed with WCW. But there was one problem. He was still the WWF champion. With his contract expiring just after Survivor Series in his home country, Bret refused to lose the title to Shawn Michaels, a man he truly despised, in Canada. He offered to drop the belt anywhere else, to anyone else, or even forfeit it the next night on Raw. But losing to Michaels in Montreal? No chance. Vince McMahon, paranoid Hart would show up on WCW television with the WWF title, publicly agreed to Bret's proposed disqualification finish. The plan, as Hart understood it, was a chaotic ending where he'd keep the belt and give it up the next night. But McMahon had a secret meeting with a tiny inner circle, including Shawn Michaels and referee Earl Hebner. A conspiracy was born. As the match neared its end, the tension was real. Michaels locked Hart into his own signature move, the sharpshooter. Hart began to reverse the hold, exactly as they'd planned. But then, the unthinkable happened. On direct orders from Vince screaming at ringside, referee Earl Hebner called for the bell. The timekeeper rang it. The match was over. Shawn Michaels was the new champion, even though Bret Hart never tapped out. The arena descended into chaos. A stunned Hart realized he'd been double-crossed and spat directly in Vince McMahon's face. Backstage, things escalated. Hart confronted McMahon in the locker room, and after a heated argument, the hitman threw a single uppercut that reportedly knocked the chairman of the board off his feet. The Montreal Screwjob was more than a finish. It was a watershed moment. It shattered wrestling's illusions, exposing the brutal backstage politics to the world. It gave birth to the evil Mr. McMahon character, a tyrannical boss who became the cornerstone of the Attitude Era. It destroyed trust between wrestlers and management for years, and for Bret Hart, it was a profound betrayal that would haunt his career. The curtain call. The day kayfabe died. Before the Montreal Screwjob exposed the front office, another incident over a year earlier had already broken wrestling's most sacred rule. May 19th, 1996. A non-televised event at Madison Square Garden. This night, now known as the curtain call, wasn't about a changed finish. It was about the illusion of wrestling itself being torn apart in front of a live audience. In the mid-90s, a powerful backstage group called The Clique, Shawn Michaels, Kevin Nash, Diesel, Scott Hall, Razor Ramon, and Triple H, were known for using their influence to help each other's careers. This particular night at MSG, was a farewell for Hall and Nash, who had signed huge contracts with rival WCW. In the main event, the good guy, Shawn Michaels, defeated the bad guy, Diesel, Kevin Nash, in a steel cage match. After the match, the script went out the window. Scott Hall, a good guy that night, came out and hugged Michaels. Then Triple H, a villain, joined them. Finally, the defeated villain, Diesel, got to his feet. Instead of fighting, all four men, two heroes and two villains, shared a group hug in the middle of the ring. They were best friends saying goodbye, and in doing so, they shattered the illusion, known as kayfabe, that their rivalries were real. Backstage, Vince McMahon was furious. This public display was seen as a huge sign of disrespect. Someone had to be punished. Shawn Michaels was the champion, so he was safe. Hall and Nash were leaving, so they were untouchable. That left one person to take the fall: Hunter Hearst Helmsley, aka Triple H. Triple H's punishment inadvertently changed wrestling history. He was scheduled to win the 1996 King of the Ring tournament, which would have shot him into the main event. Instead, that victory was given to a tough, rising star named Stone Cold Steve Austin. After winning, Austin cut his legendary Austin 3:16 promo, and a megastar was born. He would go on to lead the WWF to victory in the Monday Night Wars. The curtain call, an act of friendship, accidentally created the very star who would save the company, proving how one unplanned, controversial moment can have consequences nobody could ever see coming. WrestleMania 9. The politics of Hulkamania. WrestleMania is supposed to be the showcase of the immortals. But at WrestleMania 9, the grand finale was hijacked by backstage politics, leaving a future legend feeling completely betrayed. The controversy wasn't a screw job, but a blatant power play by the biggest star in wrestling history. The year was 1993, and the WWF was transitioning to a new generation, led by the gifted champion, Bret the Hitman Hart. The plan for WrestleMania 9 was for Hart to defend his title against the massive Yokozuna and win, solidifying him as the company's new face. But there was a problem, and his name was Hulk Hogan. Hogan had recently returned and, according to Bret Hart, used his backstage influence to convince Vince McMahon that Bret wasn't a big enough star. A new plan was hatched on the day of the show. Hart would still wrestle Yokozuna, but would lose after Yokozuna's manager, Mr. Fuji, threw salt in his eyes. Then, Hulk Hogan would rush to the ring, get challenged to an impromptu match, and quickly beat Yokozuna to become the new champion. Bret was devastated. To soften the blow, he was promised that Hogan would return the favor and lose the title back to him at SummerSlam. Reluctantly, Hart agreed. That night, it all went down exactly as scripted. Hart lost to Yokozuna, and the crowd was confused. Then, Hogan's music hit, and within seconds, he hit his leg drop and won the title. The show ended with Hogan celebrating, a scene that felt disconnected and unearned. The real controversy came a few months later. When it was time to plan SummerSlam, Hogan flatly refused to lose the title to Bret Hart. He claimed Hart wasn't in his league. Instead, Hogan dropped the belt back to Yokozuna at the next pay-per-view before leaving the company for nearly a decade. The promise was broken. Bret Hart had been outmaneuvered by the industry's biggest star. It revealed the immense power a top attraction like Hogan held backstage, able to change creative plans based on his personal preference. For Bret, it was another painful lesson in backstage politics, a wound that would fester for years before the ultimate betrayal in Montreal. Unforgiven 1999, the birth of a reign of terror. The Attitude Era was all about chaotic energy and anti-heroes, but as the millennium approached, a new power was rising, cemented in a controversial and politically charged main event. The match was a six-pack challenge for the vacant WWF Championship at Unforgiven in 1999. The winner was Triple H, and his victory wasn't just a storyline moment. It was the beginning of what many fans would later call his reign of terror. The match itself was a whirlwind. The participants were Triple H, The Rock, Mankind, Kane, Big Show, and the British Bulldog, with Stone Cold Steve Austin as the special enforcer. It was a chaotic mess of interference and run-ins, typical of the era. But in the end, Triple H hit The Rock with a pedigree to win his second WWF championship. On the surface, it was just another wild main event. But the controversy was about what it represented. This marked the start of Triple H's solidification as a permanent main eventer, a position many fans felt was tied to his real-life relationship with Vince McMahon's daughter, Stephanie. As his backstage influence grew, so did his on-screen dominance. While the fan-termed Reign of Terror is often associated with his long title runs between 2002 and 2005, this victory in 1999 was seen as the launchpad. Over the next few years, Triple H became the focal point of Monday Night Raw. His championship reigns were long, and talented wrestlers like Rob Van Dam, Booker T, and Kane often saw their momentum halted when they were fed to him. Fans grew tired of what they saw as predictable booking, believing his top spot was protected by his political power. The Unforgiven 1999 win was the genesis of this perception. It highlighted a new kind of backstage politics, not just a star protecting his spot, but a rising star with family connections securing a permanent place at the top. It left fans debating for years. Was it a masterful heel generating heat? Or was it a case of real-life power dynamics dictating the show? We've seen betrayals from the front office and power plays from the biggest stars, and we're only getting started. Before we get to our next shocking moment, let us know in the comments, which wrestler do you think had the most backstage influence? We'll be reading your takes. Now, let's get back to it. SummerSlam 2010, the burial of the Nexus. In the summer of 2010, WWE had its hottest angle in years. A group of 8 rookies called the Nexus, led by Wade Barrett, exploded onto the scene. They were a renegade faction trying to tear down the WWE establishment. Their debut was shocking, as they destroyed John Cena and the entire ringside area. They were an immediate, credible threat, and their momentum led to a massive 7-on-7 elimination match at SummerSlam against Team WWE, led by Cena. This match was supposed to be the coronation of the Nexus. The original plan, according to Nexus members, and even Team WWE's Chris Jericho and Edge, was for the Nexus to win. The logical finish was Wade Barrett being the last man standing, cementing him as a top-tier villain. It was a star-making moment waiting to happen, but that's not what happened. On the day of the show, John Cena, the company's top star, had a different idea. According to Jericho and Edge, they argued with Cena backstage, trying to convince him that a loss would kill the Nexus angle completely. But Cena felt a win for Team WWE was the right call, and as the top guy, his voice carried the most weight. The finish was changed just hours before the show. The match came down to Cena against both Wade Barrett and Justin Gabriel. 2-on-1. At one point, Barrett hit Cena with a DDT onto the exposed concrete floor, a move that should have ended it. But Cena recovered. He eliminated Gabriel and then made Barrett, the group's unstoppable leader, tap out to win the match as the sole survivor. The crowd's reaction was mixed, but many were left stunned and deflated. The Nexus, built as an unstoppable force, had been single-handedly defeated by one man. All their momentum vanished instantly. The storyline fizzled out, and the group eventually disbanded, failing to produce the main event megastar it seemed destined to create. John Cena himself later admitted he was wrong about the finish. It was a frustrating example of a top star's influence sacrificing a promising new act for a short-term, feel-good moment. Money in the Bank. 2011, the pipe bomb. Heard round the world. Sometimes the controversy isn't a secret plot or a power play. Sometimes it's just giving a man a microphone and letting him speak his mind. On June 27, 2011, CM Punk sat cross-legged on the Raw entrance ramp, broke the fourth wall, and delivered a promo that would ignite the wrestling world. It was called the Pipe Bomb, and it was so raw and full of insider truth that fans still debate how much was real. The context was key. CM Punk's WWE contract was legitimately about to expire on the night of the Money in the Bank pay-per-view, where he was set to face John Cena for the title in his hometown of Chicago. Punk was genuinely planning to leave. Vince McMahon, sensing an opportunity, reportedly gave Punk a live mic and the freedom to let off some steam. What followed was 6 minutes of captivating television. Punk didn't just target Cena, he targeted the entire WWE system. He called out Vince McMahon, calling him a millionaire who should be a billionaire for surrounding himself with yes-men. He name-dropped other wrestling promotions like Ring of Honor and New Japan Pro Wrestling, something unheard of on WWE TV. He even took a shot at Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. His mic was cut just as he was about to tell a personal story about Vince's anti-bullying campaign. Was it a disgruntled employee airing real grievances, or the most brilliantly crafted promo in a generation? The answer is likely both. The sentiments were real, even if the delivery was approved. The pipe bomb made CM Punk a megastar overnight. The match at Money in the Bank lived up to the hype, with Punk winning the WWE Championship and leaving the company with the title as he blew a kiss to a furious Vince McMahon. Of course, he re-signed and returned, but the controversy was in the genius of it all. WWE weaponized the truth, pulling back the curtain so far that the backstage drama became the on-screen drama, kicking off a new reality era. SummerSlam 2013. The betrayal that sparked a movement fan passion has always been wrestling's lifeblood, but rarely has it been so powerful that it completely hijacked a company's plans for WrestleMania. That's exactly what happened after SummerSlam 2013, a night that ended with triumph, followed by a soul-crushing betrayal. The hero was Daniel Bryan. A perennial underdog, Bryan didn't have the typical look of a WWE main eventer, but the fans adored him. His YES chant had become a cultural phenomenon, and their support became so overwhelming that WWE had to put him in the SummerSlam main event against John Cena for the WWE Championship. The special guest referee was Triple H, the on-screen COO, who promised to call it right down the middle. Bryan and Cena had an incredible match, and Bryan won clean with his new finisher, the running knee. The arena erupted. The underdog had finally done it. But the celebration didn't last long. Randy Orton, Mr. Money in the Bank, walked out. As he teased a cash-in, Triple H suddenly spun Bryan around and hit him with a pedigree. The crowd went from pure elation to furious silence. Triple H had revealed his true colors. He beckoned Orton back to the ring. Orton cashed in his contract and pinned the unconscious Bryan to become the new champion. This was the birth of the Authority, a villainous corporate faction. WWE's plan was to establish Orton as the top heel, but they severely underestimated the fans' love for Bryan. The controversial ending didn't just make fans angry, it galvanized them. The YES movement was born. For the next 8 months, fans hijacked shows with YES chants, making it clear they would only accept Bryan as champion. The fan rebellion became so intense that WWE had to scrap its original WrestleMania 30 plans. They were forced to insert Bryan into the main event, where, in one of the most satisfying endings in WrestleMania history, he defeated Triple H, Randy Orton, and Batista in one night to finally become champion. The SummerSlam betrayal was a storyline that sparked a real-life fan movement, proving that the most powerful force in wrestling is sometimes the audience itself. WrestleMania 30, the end of an era. For 21 straight WrestleManias, it was the one constant. More than a winning streak, it was an unbeatable force of nature. The Undertaker's undefeated streak at WrestleMania was one of wrestling's most sacred legends. Then came April 6th, 2014. His opponent was Brock Lesnar. And then, it was over. The decision to end the streak remains one of the most polarizing booking choices ever. The controversy isn't about a screw job or backstabbing, but a single, cold business decision made by Vince McMahon. Leading up to the match, almost no one thought The Undertaker would lose. The match itself was clunky, made worse when Undertaker suffered a severe concussion early on. He fought on, but after a third F5 from Lesnar, the referee counted to 3. Silence. The 75,000 fans in the Superdome were in a state of collective shock. The timekeeper was reportedly so unsure that he hesitated to ring the bell. Even Lesnar's own manager, Paul Heyman, stared in disbelief. The iconic graphic 21-1 finally flashed on the screen, confirming the impossible. The streak was broken. The reaction wasn't heel heat, it was sadness and confusion. Why Lesnar? He was already an established monster who didn't need the streak to elevate him. Fans and even other wrestlers felt it should have been used to create a new, full-time star, not a part-time attraction. According to reports, the decision was made by Vince McMahon on the day of the show. The Undertaker himself has said that when he arrived at the building, the plan was for him to win. Later, Vince came to him and said the plan had changed. Trusting his boss, Taker's only question was, "Are you sure this is what you want?" For many, it felt like a betrayal of the mythology, sacrificing a 2-decade-long legend for a momentary shock that served a part-timer. Referee scandals, the third man in the ring. In wrestling, the referee is supposed to be an impartial background figure, but some of the biggest controversies have erupted when the man in stripes became part of the story. And no referee is more synonymous with controversy than Earl Hebner. His most infamous moment, of course, was calling for the bell at the Montreal Screwjob. But his journey into scandal began long before that. It started with one of the wildest angles of the 80s, the twin referee scandal. On the main event. In 1988, Hulk Hogan defended his title against Andre the Giant. The referee was supposed to be Dave Hebner, but Andre's manager, the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, paid off Dave's identical twin brother, Earl, to pose as Dave. During the match, Hogan clearly got his shoulder up, but Earl made a fast 3 count anyway, giving the title to Andre. Then the real Dave Hebner ran to the ring, and the 2 identical refs argued, revealing the plot to a stunned audience. It was a storyline, but it established that referees could be bought, planting a seed of doubt that would last for decades. Hebner became the go-to ref for crooked finishes, playing a biased official in countless storylines. But the controversy eventually spilled into real life. In 2005, WWE fired Hebner after 17 years for allegedly selling company merchandise without permission. It was a shocking end for WWE's most recognizable official, and one Hebner himself claims was a cover for other backstage political issues. The legacy of the crooked ref lives on. Every time a ref gets knocked out at a convenient moment or makes a fast count, it sparks debate. The story of Earl Hebner, from his evil twin debut to his real-life firing, is proof that in WWE, the man in charge of keeping order can often be the one at the very center of the chaos. WWE's history is filled with these moments where the line between script and reality was completely erased. Backstage betrayals, shocking decisions, and real-world conflicts remind us that the most compelling stories in wrestling are often the ones that were never written down. What do you think? Which controversial match shocked you the most? Is there a moment we missed that you think deserves to be on this list? Let us know in the comments below. Hence.